the way how the feed is produced, the texture of a feed, the particle size, durability, also stability, can make or break animal performance, actually.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Feed Science Podcast brought to you by Wisenetics. I'm your host, Bob Odker, and today we have Dr. Dejan with us, and he's going to help us understand some things about feed. Dr. Dejan, I'd ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Dejan, and I'm associate professor at Norwegian University of Life Sciences, and also I'm head of Center for Feed Technology. I've been working for the last about 25 years within the feed technology and related fields. Educated PhD students, master students, bachelor students, and of course we do educate industrial professionals too.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, we want to talk about feed today, something I like to talk about. So we'll just jump in here. You mentioned feed quality. Can you tell us what you mean, by feed quality of animal feed and how you measure it?
Yeah, well, when we talk about animal feed, so let me actually just start from this perspective where usually we think about nutrients, we think about protein levels, we think about vitamins, minerals, and so on. But the way how the feed is produced, the texture of a feed, the particle size, durability, also stability, can make or break animal performance, actually. So when we think about feed that is actually focusing on designing and optimizing processes, not purely manufacturing, but optimizing processes that will actually convert raw ingredients into relatively balanced and sometimes extremely balanced high quality animal feed. We know that modern feed processing is having several steps, as such as grinding, and then there would be mixing, there would be pelleting or extrusion, for example. That would improve nutrient availability and enhance digestion in livestock. Uh, so when we are talking about pelleting technology will increase feed density, and it will reduce to some degree selective eating, because that's really happening in the real world, and especially when we are talking about poultry. And by doing so, we will improve growth performance in poultry, in swine, in fish, and so on. Uh, but then, when we are looking at this advanced ingredient characterization that will allow nutritionists throughout the world to precisely formulate the diets that will actually meet the specific need of targeted animal species, and not only that, but there are also life stages. Then you have the technology that will actually improve maybe start gelatinization, protein digestibility, and it will overall benefit monogastric animals quite a lot, as poultry is. So feed technology will actually help you from one side to this uh, minimize nutrient loss, but you need to set several things that are the most kind of the pivotal points in the production, and that is, except of course energy usage and so on, that would be the physical quality of a feed. And when you ask me what do we mean by physical quality of the animal feed, then I can just say that physical quality itself refers to the structure and consistency of feed. That's very simple way to see the things and to say the things, to define the things. For dry feeds, that means pellet durability, particle size That would be also particle size uniformity, and the amount of dust or the amount of fines found in the feed after processing. From the other side, for aquatic feeds, that would be about how long pellet would actually remain stable in the water without breaking apart and so on. So the high quality feed is, or it's supposed to be uniform, it's supposed to be durable, and it's supposed to be easy for animals to consume. Because if you have poor quality feed pellets or crumbles that produces dust or disintegrates in water, you would in aquaculture and also in poultry farm, you would have actually a problem. You'll have potential contamination, and you don't want to do that. So we measure or these kind of attributes with the tests or analysis like durability index, pellet durability index, or conventionally defined as PDI percentage. And then we do the sieve analysis for particle size, and for shrimps, for example, we do water stability tests. So the second part of question was
how do you measure the quality? So I think some of the things you've talked about. I'm really interested in the PDI, and you mentioned fines, and then you talk about PDI, which obviously are connected. How do you determine?
We do the assessment of durability. When I say PDI percentage, that means durability. Using devices like, for example, Holman tester, which was actually developed here in Norway. And now it's some British company producing the new Holman durability tester, or we used tumbling boxes, tumbling testers, and then what's really very important, and I see that is happening actually more and more at the farms. Farms they use these hand sieves for the evaluation of the optimized feed. So they see some of the farmers they also have their own tumbling boxes or analytical devices to analyze pellet durability index. So basically, what you want to do with analyzing pellet durability index and also hardness, which is very important. Pellet durability index is important because of transportation systems, and abrasive property of these systems, especially when we are feeding animals in the farms without really optimized feeding systems, like very high air pressure, and hence the deterioration of pellets would happen from one side. From the other side, we have hardness or a texture of a feed, and this is very important for storage purpose. Because imagine you have like one single pellet, and you have like 100 tons over that single pellet. That's lots of force that can break the pellets.
How do you determine? I mean, when we do all this measurement, right? We got to have some idea with, yes, this is good. No, this isn't good. I've been in commercial feed a lot of my life, and it seems like there's a lot of different opinions.
Yeah, right.
How do we determine when we got what we want?
Well, the thing is that I was called for several times to the court to explain what is the feed quality and what is the PDI, and what do we say is good or bad and so on. I'm always saying in the contracting, you're supposed to put some number. You're supposed to put some percentage of PDI. And normally this could be from 90% up to 95 or 96%. And once you sign a contract, then you always can say like, okay, plus or minus, it will be plus or minus 2%, because you can't really be so precise in predicting the pellet durability index. But I would say that everything under 80, it's a poor quality. That's what I would say.
Okay. That's a place to start, right?
That's a place to start, at least. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and the same would apply then to micron size or standard deviation in ground feed or something. The customer, the end user, should kind of set the expectation.
Exactly. Yeah, because there is a customer that's supposed to actually say what do they want, so that manufacturer can say like, okay, I can produce this one that you want with maybe error rate of 5% or 10%. It's everything is upon the agreement, of course.
Okay, well, so now we know what we're kind of looking for, and particularly as we talk about poor feed quality, can you give us some examples how that would affect, poultry digestion or, flock uniformity, that kind of thing? What do we see when it's poor?
Yeah, so poultry rely on consistent particle size to develop their gizzard properly. So in the feed, which is too dusty or uneven, birds they are very selective eaters. They may eat very selectively, leading to actually uneven growth. Um, and when you have the dust, you are also reducing feed intake because birds avoid it. It's just simple as that. When we are talking about birds, some animals, like for example, rabbits, they will starve, but they will not eat small particles. They will not eat dust. They will die, but they will not eat dust. So pelleted feed improves growth rate and feed conversion ratio, actually. But if pellets break easily, birds they may end up with fines that don't really support optimal digestion. Because remember, in fines you find lots of minerals and vitamins, and they require all these things. So basically, if you have the fines and you don't support optimal digestion, what will happen? As a result, you'll have very poor flock uniformity. You may have a higher feed costs too, and overall you will have weak performance in the chicken. When I have another example, when you have, for example, a turkey performance. We have seen there is some evaluation done by Marcus Kenya Tavigen turkeys in the UK. They tested crumbs and the pellet quality on modern turkey genotype. So what did they found? They found out that the young turkeys, they show a clear preference for actual medium and large crumbs over particles that are very small. And when you have these kind of things, when they compared good versus poor feed quality, then they seen actually significant differences in the growth and efficiency. So, if I remember well, birds that were fed with the poor feed quality, they had like over 12% lower body weight and over 35% or worse feed conversion ratio by 20 weeks. So poor feed form also could reduce several things like what did they found it was related to breast meat that had the reduced yield by, if I'm not mistaken, now everything is in the brain, but like 8% or something like that. And that means that the physical development of these poults was lower. And then if you have this kind of indication, then of course you are expecting that you'll have enteric health to be negatively affected, poor gut condition, leakage in birds that are fed with poor feed quality. So all these things would set or destroy the targets for your production, actually.
And in the swine industry, we see this sorting too, and of course with bigger animals, it can be quite costly from feed wastage. We have a lot of feed that ends up in the pit.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big problem. Lots of nitrogen is just thrown away, or
yeah, they're pretty particular for a pig, I guess. I see here on the notes too, we're talking about shrimp feed some, and and how water stability affects shrimp. Would you like to give us an example of how that works?
Shrimp feed must stay intact in water for hours. If pellets break apart quickly, then what would happen? As a consequence, nutrient will leak out. Uh, so then, when you have nutrients to leak out, you will pollute the water, and then you will leave the shrimp with less to eat. It's as simple as that. So if you have dusty or weak pellets, they will easily disintegrate, and then what will happen, that would lead further on to poor growth and higher mortality, because now you have lots of nitrogen trapped in, you have less oxygen, and so on and so on. So you would need to integrate lots of air pumps in order to aerate the ponds. And I've seen in Thailand, it's happening that, or Asia in general, it's happening that there is um, a fraction of a quality that was required, but the factory never reached. And the farming, they didn't invest in additional pumps, so they have just like some pendles, and these pendles, they really don't function very well. Um, so in the end, they get like high mortality rate, and if you have such a pollutant instead of having a nutrient that's supposed to be consumed by the shrimp, then you have very low production rates. Absolutely. And the same would be with the fish. Basically, here in Norway, if you have, for example, a fish that is like a salmon fish, it's somewhere in the mid area of the sea depth. So basically, if you have pellet that is sinking extremely fast, like a stone, then the fish wouldn't really catch the pellet, and then maybe 10% of pellets will just like get down, and they will, instead of being valuable nutrients, they will be terrible pollutants.
Yeah, that makes sense. Almost become poison, don't they? If at high enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and that, especially that would happen in warm summers, for example, because in Norway sometimes we can have temperatures to 30 degrees centigrades, and if you have such pollution, then you are actually having an added value to health, basically.
Okay, well, and so all of us in agriculture today, we understand margins and financial impact of this kind of stuff. So I really need to ask you to hit on, what the economic and environmental costs are to the farmer when we ignore this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so when we are having poor or low durability and low hardness, so with the poor feed quality, we will increase the feed conversion ratio. So basically, what does it mean? It means that the more feed is needed for the same weight gain, and then that would potentially drive up production costs. It's very simple calculation, and then when that happens, it will also create more waste. There would be more uneaten feed. Then, as mentioned, nutrients that will leak out, and you'll have higher manure output. So environmentally, this would mean more pollution. And then if you have more pollution, then more greenhouse gases emission, less sustainable farming, and so on. And that's something that we don't want. We want to go towards more sustainable farming. So economically, producers, they will simply lose money because animals grow slower, health problems will increase, and the feed efficiency will drop. So when we are talking about investing in feed quality, I would just say that that really pays off, because you will get first better animal health, you will improve performance, and you will have higher profitability. Uh, so basically, if I would need to wrap this up, then I would need to say that physical feed quality is just as important as nutritional composition, basically, of a feed. And that we see that in poultry, we see that in pigs, shrimps. Poor quality feed reduces intake and also harms health and simply wastes money, basically. Therefore, yes, feed manufacturers, they should monitor pellet durability. They should monitor particle size. They should monitor water stability. But also farmers should do that. Farmers should also perform the same thing, because a few times happen that producers or manufacturers, feed manufacturers, they produce feed according to contracts. Uh, but the feeding systems at the farm was so bad that the feeding system destroyed the pellets. So it's not really just about feeding animals; it's about feeding them well. That's a kind of top layer cake that every farmer should understand.
Yeah, I'm an operations guy and a manufacturing guy, so I'm sitting here thinking, you know a lot about making a good pellet. How do you make the blend between compression, formulation, cost to feed? Better pellets to me often run slower, so more cost at the feed mill. Can you give us a little idea how the farmer, the user, and the producer of the feed need to work together to? I mean, we have to share the value, right, to make it work for us.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Absolutely. First, it's a need. So the farmer needs to say, okay, what is the need of my animals? What kind of animals do I have? What's their age? What's the current health situation, the farm in general? And then the feed manufacturer and a farmer, they need to discuss about the particle size distribution in the feed. Once you know the particle size distribution that you wish to have in the feed for that particular animal species or animal model, and their production stage or a life stage, then you would need to consider the size of a pellet, the diameter of a pellet. Once you have this in place, uh, you have to take out the relevant raw ingredients. Mostly, we will talk about macro ingredients, because macro ingredients are the ones that will actually give you the worst or better quality. But then also, what's really very important, when you see that you won't reach the required pellet durability index, you as a manufacturer, you need to consider pellet binders, and the farmer needs to understand why pellet binders are there, because pellet binders in this case, they are not just the uh, something that will thin out the nutrients that you're supposed to deliver to animals, but that's like a binding gel that it's supposed to actually form the network, so that this network will give the consistent physical quality, so that this physical quality will remain from a producer, from the manufacturer, from a factory to the farm, and then further on to the animal pen.
Okay. Yeah. So collaboration has to be there to.
Collaboration and understanding, that's very important, because it can happen that manufacturer will say, like, I'm really sorry, but I don't think that we can reach that pellet durability index. Then nutritionist or a farmer needs to understand that some material should be taken out, or that some material should be added, even though they would be more expensive, or if you can fit the bill, you would need to discuss about these things.
Sure. And do some trials and prove it and those kind of things. Yeah.
And that's like of paramount importance when you do the trials, and especially if you're involving research institutions, then you would understand very well. Then you will know the truth. Actually, it's just as simple as that. You will know the truth, so that you will not do your estimates. You will know exactly what is happening, and you will know the mechanism of it.
Yeah. Take the guesswork out. I mean, that's what science does for us, right?
Exactly. Repetition. It's as simple as that. We do know that if we haven't had scientific model, we wouldn't have these cameras, computers, or whatsoever we have around us.
Bin Century is the global leader in animal feed supply chain management, monitoring tens of thousands of feed bins every day. Our AI-powered sensors and software replace feed inventory guesstimates with precise, real-time inventory data. Leading protein producers trust Bin Century technology to help them prevent feed and ingredient outages, lower their operating costs, and raise healthier animals. Learn even more by visiting www.binsentry.com today.
Okay, well, that makes sense to me. Well, we're getting towards the end here. Is there anything that we've missed? Anything important you'd like to share with our audience?
If there is something, if somebody wants to learn a little bit more about feed production and about feed technology, our university will run in the end of June. We will run a master course in the feed manufacturing technology. So basically, I'm inviting everybody who is interested to come in the end of June. End of June is very nice in Norway. It's sunny at least.
That's good to know.
Yes.
Well, hey, I've really enjoyed talking to you. And to those of you who are watching, I hope you find this interesting. And if you do, I'd ask that, you'd share it with somebody or like or subscribe to our channel. There'll be more of this type of stuff to come in the future. And again, I thank you for being my guest today, Doctor. And to all you out there, take care and God bless.
Thank you very much, Bob. Thanks a lot.